guys, let's dig into the amp settings of the guitar tracks you just heard. So we'll start out with the amp itself. Of course, this is the EVH 5153 EL34 tube version, okay? It's a 50 watt head and a 212 cab. Now, I'm going to share my nitty-gritty settings with you here, from the gain to the EQ and everything. But first, let me tell you how I recorded these tracks. So, real simple, guys. I've just got a basic Shure SM57 right next to the speaker here, the grill, but I've got it kind of off to the side of the cone. That gives me a little bit darker tone, which I prefer. Now, I've got that running directly through my Presonus Quantum 2 interface. And the interface input setting is only at 38, and that may surprise you when we get to the volume of the amp that I recorded at here. Now, lastly, before we get to the amp settings, I am not running any post-processing at all in my studio. It's just a raw track. Now, the only thing I did add for the lead tracks, I did add a delay plug-in because I like a little delay for my leads, but there's no compressors or extra EQs, nothing at all. It's just the raw tone that you're hearing coming out of the studio. All right, let's dig into the amp and EQ settings for the guitar tracks, and we're gonna start out with the rhythm track. The gain is set just under 7, and you know, I feel like that was plenty of gain for the rhythm guitar tracks. I don't want my rhythms oversaturated when I'm playing like more of like a hard rock classic metal style. We get to the lows here. You see my lows are boosted a little bit. They're boosted at a little bit over 6, and that's because the volume, which we're about to get to, the volume that I'm recording at is so low. Now, typically, if I'm recording at a higher volume, if I've got the amp volume cranked up, then I'm gonna wanna cut those lows out some, so that way my guitar sits a little bit better in the mix and you've got more room for like the kick and the bass guitar and that sort of thing. But again, since I'm recording at a lower volume here, I gave my lows a little boost. Now here we are at the mids. You can see that my mids are just shy of 4. I like that mid-range cut a little bit, especially when I'm playing like rock and metal. And you know, this setting right here I found just really hits a sweet spot to my ears anyway. All right, let's look at our highs. Now my highs are boosted quite a bit. Right there, just shy of about 7, seems to be a really nice spot to get that really good tone that sits well in the mix. My volume, again, is not very loud. I think I've got it on maybe like 2 or something like that, or you know, between 2 and 3 here. And that's what I recorded those tracks at. And now in this room, I'm in a 10 by 11 room. That's my studio here. You know, that's still pretty loud in this little room here. But, you know, I was able to pick up a really good signal, a real strong signal with my SM57 mic. I'm not even going through a direct box with that mic. And that mic is just plugged straight into my Quantum 2 interface, which, remember, we looked at the volume of that, the input volume, that's only 38. You know, you'd think with the amp not being so loud, I'd have to cut my interface input up to get a good signal, but I was able to get a really nice signal with the volumes that you see here. Now let's get into the lead guitar track. You heard some solos in there. Now the only thing that really changed for my lead guitar that you heard was the gain. I boosted the gain up quite a bit, probably around 9-ish there. And that just gives me a little bit more of that saturation that I'm looking for. Now, of course, if we had the volume cranked up, I might be able to back the gain off a little bit and still get that saturation, still get those notes holding there. Because one thing I did notice at a lower volume, especially on the blue channel, those notes did not hold out very long. Actually, I had to go back and re-record some parts, you know, I was trying to get those sustaining notes there. And it's really hard to get at that lower volume, so that's why I had the gain cranked up to about 9 there. What about pedals? You guys are probably thinking, well, what pedals did you use, Jason? So the only thing I really use, guys, is this MXR Smart Gate. I've got it hooked up to my One Spot Pro here, but that's it. You know, a lot of you are probably expecting to have some kind of like tube screamer or overdrive or something like that. And you know, I found, in my opinion, that this amp really doesn't need that. You know, I did have an overdrive connected to it. I've played the amp. In fact, the video that I'm about to point you to here, which has got, you know, a demo of all of the channels, the green, the blue, and the red. I'll just go ahead and put it up here so you can watch that next. You know, that video, I test the amp with and without an overdrive in front of it. And you know, just after playing around with this amp more, I prefer the tone I'm getting, even the recorded tone I'm getting, without any overdrive. I just like the amp's natural gain that it has. You know, it sits in the mix really well, and it just sounds really tight and nice. And if you feel differently about that, please leave a comment on this video here. I'd love to talk more about that. Maybe we can set up a live session to talk more about some of the pedals that you guys use with your amps and that sort of thing. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention, so the song you heard is actually called Jacked, and it's from my heavy metal workout album. And what I did, you know, I still have all my raw files in the studio. What I did is I just muted the other guitars and just created new tracks and re-recorded those guitars using this amp. And now I'm thinking, man, I wish I had this amp back then when I recorded the album. But if you want to hear that album, I know a lot of people listen to that, especially during their workouts, because it's just really instrumental, pure, raw metal to listen to during your workout. I'll leave a link to that album in the description of this YouTube video. And if you have any questions at all about this amp or about my settings, or if you want to talk more about the pedals maybe that you use with this amp, leave those in the comments. I'd love to start conversations about that. You know, we love talking about this stuff here. It's awesome. Hey, it's part of our life. Guys, thank you so much again for watching my video, and until the next one, keep it metal.